With time moving at the speed of life and death, we seek joy in passing seconds. We believe in the rising stock of human equity. We employ the laws of abundance and stoke the fire of continuous reciprocity. We believe in the art of creating our stories and our relationships. We believe in the richness of reliability and trust, in the elegance of the helping hand. We believe in rising together, in upholding the traditions of the village, in the innate dignity of communal success, where neighborhoods leave no neighbor without. We believe in the celebration of harmony, understanding there are no throwaway people, that each of us is endowed with gifts and needs for services to exchange with purpose and kindness. Your self-worth will always come before your net worth. Currency for Humankind. You are listening to Karla Ballard, host of Currency for Humankind, where we get to sit down and talk about this lovely subject of community capital. Welcome. Hello to all the guests. My name is Karla Ballard, host of Currency for Humankind. I am thrilled today to have Soo Wilkinson joining us, just an artist extraordinaire, but a designer, somebody who's absolutely gifting the world with her abilities that go beyond just art. Now we're talking technology and the metaverse and ways of bringing cultural capital alive. So, Soo, we're going to start off with one of those random questions because I want folks to get to know the beautiful soul that I've gotten to know. So when you were 13 years old, what was that one thing that stood out to you to kind of draw you into what you're doing today?
Oh, wow. It's yeah, there was I'm at 13 years old, I think I was at that sort of crossroads of um which artistic discipline I would follow because I just loved everything. You know, I was a dancer when I was younger. I studied ballet with the Royal Academy and then I was really into music. I played guitar and sang and but I've always drawn and painted, since I was very young. So my dad, I can remember one of my sort of earliest memories was my dad sort of, doing a still life with me. And I was tiny, I was a teeny tiny child, really. But he was saying, so that apple, it's not just green, look closer, you know,
Mm.
and and then we started doing sort of contours and shading and noticing that there were other shades of color within the shape and the shadows of an apple, So I was always really fascinated by, sort of color and perspective and, framing things in my mind. So and he taught me how to draw in perspective, so sort of, I was quite advanced as an artist by the time I got to high school.
Wow.
And then, it's funny because it takes one person in school, doesn't it? You teach
Yeah, it's true.
and I was really fortunate to have two good art teachers during my sort of high school years who both really, really helped accelerate and nurture
Hmm.
artistic sort of talent that I had. And I my second art teacher at school, so I would have been about 13, said to me, have you considered going to art school? Have you considered going to art college when you leave? And I was like, no, what's that? Kind of like, that's
Right.
cool. I want to go to art school, So I suppose that would have been the moment, Mr. Jones, my art
Hmm.
teacher, who bless his heart, he was actually he would have taught at the Royal Academy. He was ex-Royal Academy, he and his wife, but they'd moved back to North Wales where I lived at the
Hmm.
time. And because his wife's mother wasn't very well and they were looking after her elderly mother. And I was just fortunately in the year that this amazing teacher was there and spotted in me something and helped me really put a portfolio together. So by the time I was 16, I was really quite proficient artist, and I was accepted unconditionally into art school, regardless of what
Wow.
exam results. So that was a sort of pivotal moment, I think, when the penny dropped that, oh, I could do this for a living, and of course, in the, at that time, people are like, well, you're going to get art school, you're going to get a proper job, and
Mm.
you'll never earn any money and blah, blah, blah. But, it's, yeah, that would have been the moment, I think, at 13, cusp of 14, having that teacher who said that was a possibility, and then thinking it sounded like the coolest thing ever, and that's what I did.
And it's amazing because I think that is any psychiatrist, right, or psychologist would probably share with us that at that pivotal moment, at that age range, there are
Mhm.
certain defining things that start to kind of pave that path.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like it did. Now, I want to now leap jump a couple years, right, into sort of share with me and the audience how you describe yourself now today.
In my professional role,
Yeah, yeah.
um, well, I suppose fundamentally at heart, I'm an artist, and but I chose design as the discipline to sort of pursue. But over the years of doing different aspects of design, I really started to become more of a creative director. So I'd head up design teams, and that would be, apologies, my phone, I need to turn it off.
Mhm.
That would be, when I was taking on commercial design projects, mostly interiors, I got to do a little bit of everything, as in I would always steer the art direction of the branding and identity, or work with, on the uniform designs, and even right down, zoning down to like ornaments and vases. I'd work with glass blowers, and I'd choose cutlery, crockery. So I kind of always had the overview of the concepts. I'm very much a concepts person, an ideas person. And then I started to build the teams in, to help deliver a vision, but making sure that, there was a design language and that each of the disciplines were kind of complementing. So there was a holistic approach. So yeah, creative director has really been my role for the last 10 years. However, I'm now moving more into the role of an experiential architect. So I'm designing spaces, places, and content for the physical and virtual worlds. So it's evolving over time, as one should.
And I think, post COVID for all of us, we got a real visceral sense of how much we desire experience. And especially within the aspect of community, currency for humankind is really about taking this concept of community capital, cultural capital, and how do we unlock that, right, to create some real financial reward. And when I have seen some of the work that you've taken me through, it is so powerful because you can feel it within your cellular system, the
Mhm.
type of impact it makes. I mean, and I've just been able to see it even on screen. Imagine being able to be immersed in some of the beautiful ways that you express now your experiential architecture, because
Mhm.
it is phenomenal. So I want us to kind of go through that now, and really hear from you on some of the projects that you have the opportunity to work on. Let's highlight some of that gets you really excited.
Oh, well, it's very varied. And I think I've learned over the years to use my neurodiversity to my advantage. And, I can I'm used to handling multiple projects on, multiple continents. So there's a
True.
lot. But it's everything really. So obviously, from a design perspective, I still do interior architecture. I work and lead on the architectural design of buildings, although I'm not an architect, as in I'm not qualified to specify buildings and structures. I lead on the aesthetic. So at the moment, current projects, I'm designing a private residence in New Delhi, which is huge. It's it's really like a residential resort,
Mhm.
that's incredible. So I do all the visioning with the clients and then bring in the architects that fit the aesthetic that we want to achieve. And then I work with them in a very collaborative way
Mhm.
on every element of that. So the architecture and the interiors and the landscaping and so on. So that's
Mhm.
one project that I'm doing at the moment. And then another is I was last year very privileged and honored to be asked and invited to be the UK ambassador for the independent and sovereign nation of Hawaii, who I'd been working with since lockdown in pro bono role, sort of
Sure.
helping with the visioning really of the building of a nation. And that's been a real, like the most incredible experience because we
Wow.
really are, able to um, the purpose of this project is really bridging the futurists and the ancients. So, how we bring in future technology and sustainable design solutions and work with the indigenous knowledge of living in harmony with the earth. So that's something that I'm quite passionate about. And since lockdown, I made a pact that I only really wanted to focus on projects that were serving a higher purpose, that were more meaningful, and it isn't just about financial gain, although we all need to earn a living. We've got roofs,
Right.
got bills to pay, we've got roofs to keep over our heads. So I'm fortunate that I have a great project that's my bread and butter, or a few great projects, then I can then dedicate so much of my time to working on this.
Mm.
um, so that's a long-term project, but
Mm.
we are we did all the visioning, and then I've helped with a rebrand, all of the sort of graphic identity of how what we're doing is going to be communicated to the world,
Mm.
and then bringing in the team of real global experts to help deliver the design. So, we'll be creating the nation first in the metaverse. So
Wow.
it will be designed, the master planning will be designed and built as an experience that people can go and, have a
Wow.
time of their lives as an avatar and, sort of see the space, and get a look and feel for that. And that will help them to fundraise for the physical build.
Mm.
Um, and it's an exemplar project really of what we can do when we work together collaboratively, so it's a future living template for living in harmony with the earth and reinstating the Ahupua'a system in Hawaii, which is living in harmony with the water from the mountains to the sea. So
Oh,
yeah, that's an incredible project to be working on with, and the team and the people that are sort of stepping in to orbit on that is astounding. So it really is going to be quite something when when we're able to share with
to
what's
share with the
happening,
world,
to share with the world what's happening with that. So I think hopefully by summer, towards the end of the summer, we'll have something on the metaverse. So the first thing that we've done is designed a memorial,
Mm.
which commemorates 22,000 people who signed um, to object for the annexation of Hawaii in the 1800s, and those signatures were taken to Congress and disappeared. And then a librarian uncovered them in 1992, 93, and she found them in the Library of Congress. And then Bill Clinton signed an apology bill, rematriated this land back to the nation of Hawaii in Waimanalo, and that's now the sovereign nation. So there's a legal premise to the sovereignty,
Mhm.
and so it's bridging the indigenous and the futurists to reinstate this harmonious, sophisticated way of life that Hawaii was pre-colonization, and not really sort of focusing on everything that's happened since, but just is this, we can't change the past, but we can change the future. So,
It's I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm just like really honing in on a lot of things that you said that are not just for, frankly, the nation of Hawaii, but it feels like you're creating a template that so many other countries can potentially follow as
yeah,
a directive for how we can live in balance.
communities, not necessarily always country, yes, of course, countries, but communities. But from a design perspective, it's really important that we learn, relearn, and remember, that we are nature. We're not separate to it, and that we have to engage with and appreciate that, certain things that we do in design and how we live impacts the planet. And, the indigenous as stewards of the land for thousands of years,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
a lot of the answers. And their voices the volume of their voices needs to be louder so that we can try and fix this problem that we're
Journeying through right now, right?
change the narrative. Is
Yeah.
that it's offering an alternative narrative, because as a creative also, I'm conscious that people say, what's your superpower? And it's like, well, bringing mind into matter. But we all forget how powerful thought is, so you've got to know what you want to get, what you want to make, what you want to create, so you get the vision and then you work out how you manifest that into reality.
Right. We know that well.
Yeah, but often people aren't realizing that, subconsciously you're manifesting as well. Because if you accept that that's the narrative, that's the only way, there's nothing you can do about it, then of course, that's subconsciously contributing towards that narrative. So sometimes you just have to be given an alternative, and then it's like, okay, all right. So it doesn't have to be that route, it doesn't have to be that. So
one of your projects, I have to say, there are flowers on Mars.
yes, will there be flowers on Mars?
Will there be flowers on Mars? And when I had a chance to myself get to go through that visual, it was a lot. It was a very pictorial way of describing what you're talking about. Like, there is a way to put the balance in order with futuristic modalities, right? And so can you share with the audience a little bit about that amazing project?
Yes. So Will There Be Flowers on Mars is the first digital 360 mixed reality artwork that I'm working on and have been developing over the last few years, with a global team. So my collaborators are between Poland, Bali, and Iran. So the premise of a lot of the content that I'm creating now for sort of digital immersive spaces, which I obviously got designs for, and I'm trying to integrate those spaces into the architecture and the buildings that I'm working on. But also this content can go out into, there's lots of digital spaces and galleries now opening all over the world that need content. So, and I wanted to create stuff that wasn't just spectacle, that it was meaningful. And I suppose Will It Be Flowers on Mars was a direct response to thinking about all of the billions of pounds that's been invested in the potential to build off-world colonies. It's like, but will there be flowers on Mars? It's like we live on this incredible planet, look at it's got everything that we need to sustain us, to sustain life. And really, we should be relearning from nature that interconnectedness. And we are nature, we're not separate to it, and remembering that. And so this piece is sort of bringing a little bit of the unseen into the scene. So we're utilizing AR,
Augmented reality.
augmented reality. So it's a 360 digital piece that will, in physical experiences, will be in digital galleries. We will have a digital sculpture trail, and then it will also exist as a sculpture in the metaverse. And really it's designed to sort of instigate conversations around ecosystems, nature, our role in the ecosystems, and really, everything from pollinators. We want to have discussions around that, and the importance of pollinators and soil and mycelium and cosmology and the
Right.
seasons and, all of these things that are all factors in everything that sustains life on Earth, that we forget is going
Right.
on. So
Right.
it's just bringing that focus and attention back on, and this piece is, at the center of the narrative is the Brahma flower, which is the
Mm.
flower of Lord Brahma in Vedic tradition. So there is a natural Brahma flower, a real plant that grows in the Himalayas, and it blooms once every 14 years at night. So it's a really rare sighting, and it's sort of, so it has all of this amazing narrative and mythology around it as well. The story of, being the flower of Lord Brahma, and it carries universal consciousness, and it's here to sort of spread joy and love and peace and da, 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 da. So it's, so the actual narrative itself is around this beautiful flower.
And where can it be found? In what part of the world?
So in the Himalaya, it grows, the real flower,
Uh-huh.
the Brahma
Great.
flower grows in the Himalayas up in
Beautiful.
India. So, but obviously it's such a rare sighting. So we're recreating that using, digital technology
Mhm.
as an experience, and bringing that story and, so using technology to really sort of highlight the
Yeah.
working nature and this entire ecosystem that we exist in, and we forget that we are part of it.
We are. And one thing that I want to get into is the community side of this, because what's so beautiful is when you are able to bring these immersive experiences, you're also bringing community with it.
Yes.
And so let's talk about some of more of the business sort of angles, right, and structures that you are hoping to unfold, especially if we have potential investors, partners that will want to listen and kind of drive this home in support of you. What are those business models look like? How are you able to bring this to the community in a way that's sticky and it really creates some engagement?
Well, it's a ticketed experience for a start, so it will be, in the different places that it goes to, it will be ticketed. And part of this as well is also, like making sure that there's income streams for artists, who've struggled a lot since COVID, the creative industries have. So, and I also want to kind of get through over this kind of weird thing that artists are supposed to suffer for their art. Just not having that anymore. It's
Yeah, I think we're done with that.
done with
And you know what? Who helped with that? Actually, Richard Florida, The Rise of the Creative Class.
that.
Publishing that book was one of the best things that we could have seen.
I've not read that book, but it sounds like I need
Yeah.
to. Yeah, so yeah, it'd be a ticketed experience, and so obviously there'll be costs associated, and then obviously, once those costs have been recuperated, then this will go out. The beauty of it is it can be shown simultaneously in multiple venues. We have digital art assets that can be bought around this. We can do the AR trail with the downloadable app, collectible star seeds, and the Brahma flowers. Um, so we're utilizing there's multiple revenue streams that we can pull in around this, and then we have the metaverse experience as well. But we're really within that. It would probably be more about conversations and workshops that we host.
Mm.
And we will also do events, special events. So if it's in a particular venue, then we might have, a dinner, an immersive dining experience one night, and then a set with, ProMid, who's been the sound composer of the piece. So we'll build in these sort of ancillary experiences to it that also
Mm.
generate more revenue for the venues, the artists.
Nice.
and the people that partake in the experience. And then the idea is that a percentage of profits will go to GARN, who are the global alliance that represent nature in courts.
Oh, nice.
They help to sort of represent species that can't speak for themselves when to save I don't know, the frogs of the Amazon, for instance. There was a case where they fought on their behalf to save the waterfall because that was their home. So they do things like this. So by partaking in this piece of art, you are supporting the arts, the creative
Oh, I
industry,
love that.
and nature.
As we wrap, because I just really think that what you're doing is sort of the next phase of entertainment, the next phase of community interactions. And I would love to hear your thoughts, right, about the future of what this is going to look like for humanity. Where are you seeing some of the trends go that are in alignment with what you're producing?
Well, I just love the interconnectivity of what this can do. So will there be flowers on Mars is one of a dozen different concepts that I'm developing that are with global artists. So we're just sort of weaving this wet network of collaboration. Collaboration for me is key. That's the future of creative industries. Collaborate, bridge cultural divides, sort of change perceptions of each other and the world at large. That's the common thread of all of the experiences. It's sort of our role as artists, I think, is to help change the narrative, really help make life seem more palatable and positive, and some hope that we can, change the course of, and in any way that you can. So, it's you individually you can do things, but collectively that's when you can make change. So for me, it's all about the collective. So it's like the more people you can kind of pull in to this, and who knows who's gonna, who we're gonna come across at these experiences, who's going to be a future collaborator of something that we create, that we start as a studio. I'm already, yeah, I'm pretty much working with people on most continents around the world, and I just want that to grow and grow and grow. And
Oh, I'm seeing the global artist, collective. And I'm so happy we had a chance to kind of hear from Soo Wilkinson today. She is a global leader out of London, but specifically, you're based in
I'm based in Manchester, actually.
Manchester.
I'm UK, yeah. I'm
of course, UK, but Manchester particularly has a very similar makeup. I was just told by like Philadelphia does. And apparently when the Manchesters helped to celebrate our Eagles win for the Super Bowl, there was a particular gathering that Manchesters did, I heard, to celebrate us because we have a similar kind of vibe. We're gritty, right? We're not London, we're not New York, right? We're Philadelphia. So I love the fact that we've had that in common. And I just think what you're doing, Soo, is definitely needed now more than ever, right? Because you're talking about the narrative change. But now, if people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
Oh, well, I have a website, SooWilkinsonStudio.com. It's very, I only actually set up Soo Wilkinson Studio last year. Before that, I had another design agency that was purely commercial interiors. So the Soo Wilkinson Studio is much more about everything,
Right.
So SooWilkinsonStudio.com is my website. And then on Instagram, I'm Soo Wilkinson. And my name, Soo, is spelled SOO. So Sue with an U is a lot of my
I love that. Sue with an U.
So I Soo Wilkinson on Instagram. And I'm, always open to finding new artists and potential collaborators and meeting new people that are, that want to do make positive change in the world, you know. So,
Wow.
positive impact is really the, what sustains me and drives me as an artist.
Well, this was awesome, awesome, awesome. And I am so excited to be able to have people see your work, because I think the need is there. Soo Wilkinson, thank you for joining this episode of Currency for Humankind. And we are thrilled, yeah, to just be able to share the cultural and artistic capital that you have with the world. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And I would look forward to being able to share Will There Be Flowers on Mars with you soon as a digital asset. And I'll hopefully have it on my Instagram. There's a little bit of information about it on the website. It's a small bit of information, but if people are particularly interested in that, then it's coming soon and it's going global. We're bringing it everywhere. So it's
beautiful note to end on.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me, Karla.